It's no secret that the Radioddity GM-30 is my favorite GMRS handheld radio. I've said so on the channel before. But what if I told you that the GM-30 has become one of my favorite handheld amateur radios? That's right. In a few minutes, you can convert one of these into a ham radio. And yes, it is better than any UV-5R that's on the market, and it even beats out the UV-9R Pro, which is a channel favorite. Want to know how to do it? Stick around and I'll show you. Welcome back to the channel. Before we get started, I want to give a big shout out to Aaron Blankenship on the Baofeng Owners Club on Facebook. He has spearheaded the effort of loading firmware both onto the GM-30 as well as the Baofeng UV-13 Pro. They're basically the same radio with some minor differences. Now, if you want to do this, what you're going to need is obviously a Radioddity GM-30. You can always find these for an excellent price on Amazon, and I would recommend you buy them from there. And then the other key piece of hardware that you're absolutely going to need is the programming cable that comes with the GM-30. You cannot use the Baofeng cable that comes with the UV-5R because that's an FTDI cable, and I don't believe that this one is. Other than that, there's just some software you need to download, and you're going to need a PC. I don't believe this works on Mac or Linux, but I can't say for certain. I didn't try it on Linux, and I don't have a Mac. That being said, let's head over to my desktop and get the process started. Okay, here we are on my desktop, and I do apologize for the change in audio. I've had to switch to recording audio on my webcam so that I can do a screen capture for you while I do this. So, in the video description are some links, and those links are to files that you're going to need to download in order to make this happen. There's only two. It's not a very big deal at all. You may also want to pick up the latest version of CHIRP. Now, I've already downloaded and installed CHIRP, so I'm good to go. You might want to do that before you start the process. It just makes things simpler later on. The first file that you're going to want to grab is this UV-13 firmware that is on the link through the CHIRP website. That's actually in the CHIRP forums. The file's hosted there. Grab that first. Put it somewhere where you'll be able to find it. What I did was I just made a folder on my desktop and saved it there. The next file that you're going to grab is from the Radioddity website, and it is the GM-30 firmware that says 2021 June 15th. Download that file. And once you download that file, open up the archive or open up the zip file, however you do it. I use 7-zip. And the most important thing that you're going to want is the CPS version 2.06. There's an executable file in there. Extract that, run it, and then it will put this icon on your desktop. That's how you can run it. It's the GM-30 GMRS radio program software. Other than that, you might want to open up this folder that says firmware update in the archive that you download from Radioddity and just grab this 2021 615 GM-30 app. This is the firmware for the radio, the original firmware. So if you want to flip back to GMRS after unlocking it to ham, you can do that as well. You can always flip it back. I've done it several times now. Not a big deal. If you don't extract it, you have it in that archive. You can always grab it later. But the most important things are this firmware file and then extracting this GM-30 version 2.06 GMRS CPS program and installing that. So once you've got the GM-30 GMRS radio program software installed, go ahead and open that up. I'll just minimize this to get it out of the way. So you're going to see that this looks like pretty much any other CPS that you've used. Not very difficult. It has the download from radio, upload to radio buttons. You know, pretty standard stuff. So the first thing I would do before you make any changes to the firmware is plug your radio in and turn it on. Turn the volume all the way up, because the first thing we're going to do is make a backup of the current configuration. So I just plugged the radio in. It's plugged in the computer. My computer is not making any system sounds right now because I'm screen sharing. So then you're going to go to Program and Read from Radio. Now, one of two things will happen. It'll either read it right away or it'll tell you that there's some kind of communication error. If there's a communication error, I'll show you how to fix that. Okay, mine is going to go right through. If there's a communication error, you're going to go into Program, and then there's a tab called Communication. And all you have to do is change which COM number it's using. I've had to go back and forth between 1 and 3 for some reason. I don't know why. If it's a full moon, it wants COM 3. If it's a sunny day, it wants COM 1. I mean, that's pretty much how it works. Now that saved everything for me. Or I'm sorry, it read the radio. So now I'm going to save that. And I've already saved this before, but I'm just going to call it old config. And it saves it with that .data. So I'm just going to overwrite that. If you were having problems, you just go up here to this communication port setting and change it to another COM port that you have open. Like I said, sometimes it's 3 for me, sometimes it's 1. I go back and forth with whichever one works. That's what I go with. Okay, so you've got your backup now. That's great. If you do want to flip back to the old firmware, you install it the same way we're about to do this, and then you've got your backup file to load all your channels back in. That's especially important if you have GMRS repeaters programmed in there that you don't want to lose. All right, so the next step in updating the firmware or changing the firmware on our radio is to unplug the radio from the PC and turn it off. So what you're going to do is hold down the PTT button and the button just underneath the PTT button on your radio and turn it on. When you do that, the LED on the top is going to turn red and be on steady. That means it is in firmware update mode. Then you're going to go to Program, Tool. And this is how Radioddity updates the firmware on their radios. With other radios, it's a different process, but with Radioddity, it's pretty simple. So now we're going to look for that UV-13 firmware file. There it is. And you might have to hunt around for wherever you saved it. I had my program already pointed to the folder where I had saved it. So we're going to open that. Okay, now it's time to plug in your radio now that you have it in the firmware update mode. So I'm going to plug in my radio. The red light on the top is still on. The screen is off. That's normal. And we're just going to say upgrade. So what we're doing right now is we're replacing the stock firmware with UV-13 firmware, the Baofeng UV-13, because the Baofeng UV-13 and the Radioddity GM-30 are basically the same radio, but not entirely. So once you've done this, everything is done. You're done uploading firmware. It's all good to go. Now, if you turn off your radio and turn it on again, which I've just done, and we're in the GMRS CPS software here from Radioddity. I'm going to try to read from my radio. I haven't changed the COM port or anything. Look at that. It will no longer recognize this radio as a GMRS radio. So this software no longer works with this radio. Now you can use this to change the firmware. It still will work for that, but you cannot use this anymore for changing the channels on your radio. That's what CHIRP is for. Okay, so once we're done with all that, it's time to start programming our radio. But as we've seen, the original GM-30 GMRS radio program software will not recognize this radio anymore because we fundamentally changed what the radio is on the inside through the firmware. So that's where CHIRP comes in. Now, as I had mentioned, I already had CHIRP installed. So when you go to program this, the same thing happens to me with CHIRP that happened to me with the programming software. Is it COM 1? Is it COM 3? I don't know. But what we're going to do is download from the radio to figure it out. So I'm on COM 1, and the radio will now be recognized as a Baofeng UV-13 Pro. So there's Baofeng. We're going to select the UV-13 Pro, which is right there, and we're going to try. Okay, no response from the radio, check connector and cabling. I am guessing this is a COM port issue again, so we're going to switch to COM 3, and we're going to try again, Baofeng UV-13 Pro. Okay, okay, and there it is. So now both CHIRP and the software that you could download from Radioddity for the European version of the GM-30 that I don't remember what the name is, they'll both recognize this as UV-13 Pro right now. So just to prove to you that this is actually an unlocked radio, we're just going to put the VHF calling frequency in here, 146.52.000. And let's see, tone, we don't need any of that. Duplex, no. And we're going to radio, upload to radio. Okay, okay. And there it is. And we will look at the radio over on the bench, and I will show you that it is now transmitting on 146.52, which is excellent because the next thing we're going to do is check to see if it has any spurious emissions. Okay, so we've loaded our UV-13 Pro firmware onto the GM-30. I have it hooked up to my Tiny SA Ultra that I just got because my Tiny SA that I originally ordered on Amazon had issues. I got this one from R&L Electronics. I would recommend everyone else do the same. Amazon is hit and miss with these. I don't know why. I bought from a seller that was supposedly okay, but yeah, my Tiny SA was garbage. So got a Tiny SA Ultra, and this has been proven to be accurate. So let's transmit on 146.52 and see if we get any spurs. Here we go. Look at that. That is amazingly clean. No spurs at all. And once the backlight kicks off, you'll be able to see that it is on 146.52. So there you go. So what does this offer over the UV5R? One, better signal rejection, better sensitivity for receiving signal. It definitely has a better speaker. It comes with a better battery out of the box. The batteries that come with it now are USB-C chargeable, which is not standard on the UV5R. As far as what it has over the UV9R Pro, which again is a channel favorite, well, the screen is a lot better than the one on the UV9R Pro because it's a higher definition screen. You can put more detail on this screen as far as what it's able to display. Better speaker than either the UV9R Pro or the UV5R Pro. They're just an excellent radio. I mean, it's been my favorite GMRS radio, and now the fact that it can do amateur radio and it's spectrally clean is just phenomenal. Now, many of you probably caught something that I said earlier in the video, in that the GM-30 and the Baofeng UV-13 Pro are basically the same radio with a few small differences. Well, as it happens, I have a UV-13 Pro, and I did the same process on this that I did to the GM-30. So let's check it for spurious emissions. So the process is the same. This will be set to transmit on 146.52 on high power, just like the GM-30. And we've got our Tiny SA Ultra here. So here we go. Frequency mode. You probably can't see the 146.52. When the backlight turns off, I'll move it closer to the camera. 146.52. Okay? So here we go. Let's see how this does. So not quite as clean as the GM-30. That third spur is below the blue line, so this does pass. It's not quite as clean as the GM-30, but it still passes. So the UV-13 Pro, also a good option. If you want to do that, you can buy UV-13 Pros and do the same conversion. I think the GM-30 is a little bit cleaner, as we've seen, but in the end, does it really matter? No, they both pass the FCC standard. So yeah, either one of these is a great option. So what I'm going to do is clear this out of the way. Let's turn that off. And I'm going to bring up a Baofeng UV-9G, which is the GMRS version of the UV5R. I'm sorry, it's the UV5G, not the UV9G. UV5R GMRS version. We're on GMRS channel 17. And I'm going to transmit from another GMRS radio. I'm going to transmit from one of the GM-30s that I have that has not been converted yet. And I'll let you listen to that, and then I'll flip it around, and you can hear what the GM-30 sounds like. Okay, so I have a mic a few inches away from the radio with the volume up a decent bit, and I'm going to walk away and I'll transmit on GMRS channel 17, and you will hear the audio quality of the Baofeng UV-5G, which is in every respect a UV-5R, just limited to GMRS channels. Give me one sec. This is WRZG 545 transmitting from a GM-30 to a UV-5G. WRZG 545. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap radios, and I'm going to put the Radioddity GM-30 here. Make sure the volume's up. Hang on one second. That's too hot. Right about there. And I'm going to transmit from the UV-5G so you can hear what the audio sounds like coming into the GM-30. This is WRZG 545 transmitting from a UV-5G to a GM-30. This is WRZG 545. Okay, and finally, I'm going to transmit from a GM-30 to a GM-30, so you can hear what that sounds like. Now, both of these are on GMRS channel 17. This is WRZG 545 transmitting from a GM-30 to a GM-30 audio test. This is WRZG 545. Okay, and finally, I thought of one more thing. I did break out the UV-9R Pro here, and I thought I would transmit from the radio that we just unlocked to the UV-9R Pro on 146.52 so you can hear what that sounds like. So let me get this one out of here because this one hasn't been converted yet. Okay, so I have the GM-30 that was converted.
Welcome. Frequency mode.
146.52. We'll turn on the UV-9R Pro.
Frequency mode.
You can see the screen. You get a much bigger screen on the GM-30, and it's a higher resolution than what's available on the UV-9R Pro. But the UV-9R Pro does have some extra waterproofing. It's not submersible, but it does have a little extra waterproofing. That being said, the GM-30 feels extremely solid. So let's do this audio test. I'll take a few steps away, and you'll hear what it sounds like transmitting from a GM-30 to the UV-9R Pro. This is Whiskey 3 Mike Bravo Tango, Whiskey 3 Mike Bravo Tango, doing a radio check. No response required. Whiskey 3 Mike Bravo Tango. Okay, now let's flip it around. Let's leave the GM-30 that's been unlocked and transmit from the UV-9R. This is Whiskey 3 Mike Bravo Tango, Whiskey 3 Mike Bravo Tango, transmitting from a UV-9R to a GM-30 unlocked. No response required. Whiskey 3 Mike Bravo Tango. So there you go. You be the judge of if one sounds better or not. I definitely think the GM-30 sounds better than the UV-5R. When it comes to the UV-9R, not as much of a difference, but the GM-30 does have a better screen. The UV-9R has a very limited screen. The UV-9R Pro is somewhat waterproof. The GM-30 isn't. But that being said, the GM-30 is built like a tank. I've never had one fail on me yet. And they're just the radio that I go to all the time. Another cool feature about the GM-30, should you pick one up, if you do pick up one of these UV-13 Pros, if that's something you want to decide to do, and those are available on Amazon as well, there is intercompatibility between the parts. So let me get the Tiny SA off of here, and I'll show you what I mean. So let's turn this one off. Take the battery off of here. This one's weird. This is the extended battery from Radioddity. It is, what is it, 2,500 milliamp hours? 2,200 milliamp hours. Here's the battery from Baofeng. that is also an extended version, I believe, but I don't think they put that on here. Well, in any case, I know this is an extended version, the 2200 milliamp hour from Radioddity. Check this out. Bingo. The batteries are interchangeable because it is basically the same radio. Again, the only major difference between this and this was a little bit spectrally cleaner, but not to any important level. Like, they both pass. So both of them are excellent radios. If you do decide to go for the GM-30, I would suggest you get the multi-pack. I'm going to post an affiliate link in the description. It comes with extra batteries, the programming cables, some speaker mics, and an extended antenna, which fits perfectly on the GM-30. And I say that because, for one reason or another, the GM-30 has a little bit of a extended stem. I don't know why. I've tried some other antennas on here and it always leaves a gap like that for some reason. But these antennas that actually come with it fit perfectly. And I have had excellent reception on the ham bands using this antenna, even though it's not technically spec'd to ham frequencies. It still works perfectly fine. So that is the UV-13 Pro and the GM-30. And both can be converted for ham use, even though they're both GMRS radios. So I hope that you found this instructional and informative, and I don't know, maybe you have some GM-30s lying around that you can convert to ham radios, or maybe you just want to go out and buy one, or maybe you want to go out and buy the cool looking UV-13 Pro. I did. But the conversion process for both of them is the same. The UV-13 Pro had a few spurs on it that the GM-30 didn't, but they were below the threshold, so it passes. Both of these radios represent an excellent value. Both of them can be had for under $30. And yes, they are both much better than a UV5R. They just are. The UV9R is a little bit closer, but you get better screens on these. I will say they both come with some perks if you buy them in a 2-pack. And the UV-13 Pro, I think, only comes in a 2-pack, if I remember correctly. But you can buy them in 2-packs that come with these extended antennas and extended batteries. Now, the Baofeng has a 2100 milliamp hour extended battery. The GM-30 has a 2200 milliamp hour extended battery. I don't know what the 100 milliamp hour difference is about, but that's what they list on the site. And if you buy the Radioddity pack that I'm going to post as an affiliate link in the video description, that actually comes with 2 speaker mics as well. And Radioddity speaker mics are actually very good. I've had excellent experiences with those. So yeah, that's going to do it. I hope you really liked the video. I was really excited to bring this one out. So I hope it excites you as well to get out there and start playing with this stuff. And one other thing I thought about. A lot of guys will say, oh, you can't use a ham radio on GMRS because they're not GMRS type approved. These are both type approved. You're just changing the firmware. So use them with ham firmware on GMRS channels? I don't know. Speculate in the comments below. I'll catch you next time. And remember, when it comes to tech, I've got you covered.